Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live broadcast, Leveraging Laboratory Information Management Systems to Provide Standardization, Efficiency, and Cost Savings, presented by Christine Paszko, Ph.D., Vice President for Sales and Marketing at Accelerated Technology Laboratories, Incorporated. I am Kaylee Bach of LabRoots, and I will be your moderator for today's event. We are delighted to bring you this educational web seminar presented by LabRoots. LabRoots is the leading scientific social networking website and producer of educational virtual events and webinars. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that this event is interactive. We encourage you to participate by submitting as many questions as you want at any time you want during the presentation. Just click on the Ask a Question box located on the far left of your screen and type your questions into the drop-down box that appears on the screen. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. If you have trouble seeing or hearing the presentation, please click on the Help Desk button located in the promotional board at the bottom center of your screen, or use the Ask a Question box to let us know that you're having a problem. This presentation is educational and thus offers continuing education credits. Please click on the Continuing Education Credits tab located in the top right corner of the presentation window and follow the process to obtain your credits. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Paszko. I will now turn the presentation over to her.
Thanks for that great introduction, Kaylee. I'm excited to talk to everyone today about leveraging LIMS to enhance standardization, efficiency, and cost savings. Before we start, we can talk a little bit about an agenda. Why bother standardizing? We're also going to talk about why this is important, especially in the medicinal cannabis market, and also how a laboratory information management system can help along with laboratory automation. We're going to look at a number of factors that are built into a LIMS that help enhance data quality, speed of reporting, and also analysis. We're going to look at tools built into the system that help to enforce terminology and standard operating practices. We're also going to look at the role the LIMS plays in facilitating regulatory compliance, such as ISO 17025, as well as FDA regulations, such as CFR 21 Part 11. One of the major benefits of LIMS and laboratory automation is data security and also note collection with LIMS and electronic laboratory notebooks. And then finally, we're going to see what a major role standardization plays in the entire process. When we think of standardization, we think of basically an entire process and being able to have full traceability from raw materials. You're manufacturing aspirin or you're manufacturing a cannabis product for medicinal consumption, whether it's a candy or if it's an oil or just anything. You want to make sure that the potency is consistent. So for example, if someone buys an aspirin and today it's maybe 150 milligrams and then next week it's only 80 milligrams, people will be not too happy that their medicine isn't having the desired effect. So there are many things that are checked throughout the cycle of raw material to final product conversion, and we'll talk about a few of those. So when we talk about full traceability, it's very important to be able to have that in place in case there's a problem with the finished product. If there's contamination with the pesticide, you want to be able to trace that back to the original supplier of that. So that's one of the major benefits that are in these types of automated systems. And also, you know, there's a lot of regulations that have come just in the last few years in terms of the Global Food Safety Initiative as well as HACCP. We're also going to talk about barcoding, both 1D and 2D, as well as RFID, and then taking a look at how the testing can be monitored at various stages through the product development, and then also rapidly communicating those results of testing that's found to those people that require that information. One of the things that we're going to look at is a LIMS has so many functions and features, from the initial sample that arrives in the laboratory to the final result. So from sample tracking to inventory control in terms of all the chemicals and reagents that are used in the laboratory, making sure you've recorded their lot numbers, their expiration dates. Some clients also record the cost so that when they need to reorder, they know exactly how much money they spent. and also what vendor has the best quality of product, because they can also link testing data of their reagents and supplies. Then there's being able to enter data. Some data is entered manually, but for most of our clients, the data is entered via instrument integration, instrument upload. And then reporting, automated reporting is also a huge time saver versus manually created reports. QA, QC for quality assurance and quality control. These are control charts. Interfacing instrument is a huge aspect of standardization, because you know you've eliminated transcription errors or errors from cutting and pasting. And then also chemical inventory, being able to manage and monitor the supplies in the laboratory. Resource management refers to managing employees, training certificates, when they expire, courses taken, all of the documentation that's associated with an employee's expertise. And then there's CRM, customer relationship management, and this module deals with an aspect that is really related to ISO in terms of customer satisfaction. So when there's a problem with the data that's generated by the laboratory, this feature allows the laboratory staff to basically manage and maintain the issues that are reported to the laboratory, whether it's a laboratory report was missing a page or the result was different from the result sent to another laboratory for testing. And then there'll be a summary and a Q&A, and then also a free LIMS guide for anyone that's interested. Again, when we look at production through analysis, there are many steps involved, from the growing, and also if they're doing any type of genetic testing, to the harvesting, to the converting into finished product. Now, some of the aspects that are very important in standardization include repeatability. So when you have a process, you want to make sure that you can do that process flawlessly over and over again. And then also consistency of product. We talked about having the potency consistent. This is very important in medicinal marijuana as well. This should be treated as any other pharmaceutical. This will promote very strong customer confidence in the finished product. For those of you that have a favorite coffee store, you know when you go to that coffee shop, you want the same taste and flavor over and over. You don't want to be surprised every time with a different formulation of coffee. So standardization is also good for customer satisfaction and building market share and brand. Modernization, leveraging the latest technology to basically become more efficient in your operations. Interoperability, this refers to making sure that everyone's trained in the same manner, so that if people need to switch positions, if someone's out sick, they are familiar with running that method, and they can just step in and you'll get the same result as if the other person that was out sick was there. And there's also manufacturing benefit. And this was actually first noted by Henry Ford, where people did the same thing over and over, and they were very consistent in their output. And it's also true with service. Customer service, you'd like to have consistency in your final product. There's also process standardization for organizations. And these allow for the early detection of risk. If there's a problem in the product, if a product's out of spec, before more work is put into it, you can identify the cause of the issue and remediate it. In terms of improving external relations with customers and suppliers, one of the things that LIMS often have are web portals, so that clients can actually go and look up their results 24/7. This cuts down time into calling the laboratory. This also ensures that the results are posted as soon as they're available, and because there's a review process in the LIMS, you know that the results are accurate. Also, it increases organizational flexibility in terms of cross-training. Employees are happier on the job because they're given the best tools to do their work, and they don't have to spend time cutting and pasting results from an instrument onto an Excel report or a Word report. And also, it increases organizational data sharing, and it's in a secure database. Let's see. So many laboratories currently use outdated LIMS, or they have paper and Excel notebooks, or they've got systems that have kind of been cobbled together with a bunch of homebrew systems, and they're really leaving money on the table because they're not being as efficient and productive as they could. We hear many reasons why people move to a newer system. Their business needs change, and the software that they purchased 5, maybe 10 years ago they've outgrown it. So when you look at new modern systems, some of the features that you'll see include a very clean user interface, the ability to drag and drop. Instrument integration is huge. Being able to directly interface the instruments with the LIMS so that, and for some clients, their instruments are modern and they can actually create a work list in the LIMS of all the samples that they're going to run, send that to the instrument runs all the samples, and then sends back the results to the LIMS without any human interaction. And the nice thing is, again, there's no opportunity for transcription errors. The entire process is much faster, and it also results in time and cost savings. Another area we talked about earlier was corrective and preventative actions. So this is very important in ISO. If there's a problem in the laboratory, you can track it. You can track who reported it, what actions were taken to remediate it, how long it was open, the severity of the issue, and who closed it. The nice thing is you have a record of everything that was done on that action. Another powerful function of a LIMS is the ability to do scheduling. So if you have tests that need to be run, if you need to do shelf life studies, those can also be scheduled. If you're talking about a food product that may be now a medicinal product, so scheduling is very important. There's many things that computers are very good at and humans not so much, and scheduling is one of those. Another aspect is being able to keep track of all of your instrumentation in the laboratory in terms of when it was last calibrated, when it needs to be calibrated, being able to link the manual, the electronic manual to the system. So again, you have one secure database that has everything linked to it in terms of all the operations of the laboratory, rather than having to run to paper notebooks or Excel sheets or other systems that were created internally. And then also, we have the ability to allow clients to change the custom captions to terminology that they're familiar with. The advantage of this is that it facilitates a rapid deployment and rapid adoption of new technology. And then also, being able to have a workflow designer allows laboratories to change the way the software works to meet their business rules. So with older systems that lack this function, if the client's business changes or if they move into a new business, they really need to either customize heavily their software or buy new software. With a workflow designer, you can just change the way that the software functions in order to leverage that technology. Another very powerful tool is the electronic laboratory notebook. This allows laboratories to go totally paperless. There's many things that can easily be managed in the LIMS, and typically this is called structured data. This is data that's gathered, for example, if you're doing a pesticide test or a microbiology test, you're doing the same test over and over and over. ELNs, or electronic laboratory notebooks, are good for unstructured data. So if you're doing some R&D, or if you want to test a new compound and maybe you're only going to do a few tests, it's not really data that a LIMS was designed to manage, but it's perfect for an electronic lab notebook. So you can basically keep track of experiments that you've done, if there's any inventions, if there's any new compounds, and they're ideal for managing this data. They also manage some structured data, and they can also interface with instrumentation in the laboratory, such as balances and pH meters. If we look at the total LIMS solution, because there's so many different aspects to it, you can look at being able to automatically print reports, being able to access the software from anywhere with a tablet or a laptop, being able to generate labels. I still see some laboratories where they manually print out labels, and I always tell them that, you know, when you have a mistake, if someone's dyslexic like I am and you invert the numbers, that mistake costs you money. But if the LIMS is already generating the number, it really makes sense to just have the label printer print that number out. There's also dashboards where you can basically take a look at the laboratory operations visually. It's very powerful. Being able to schedule samples, looking at instrument integration, looking at external storage so that you can store years and years worth of data, being able to have a web portal that's behind the firewall where clients can access their results 24/7 is also very important. And then also having a tool if you're doing any type of field monitoring or work in the plant where you can actually enter results in, it captures the GIS coordinates and then sends that back to the LIMS database. Next, we're going to take a look at some examples of dashboards. If you want to take a look at the number of samples processed by the laboratory, who the largest client is, the workload capacity, you can look at freezers and refrigerators and incubators. If there's any where the temperature is going below a critical limit, you can have it set up to automatically send an email or call your cell phone. So there's a lot of capability in these dashboards. And each user may have different things that are important to them, so you can also leverage user-specific dashboards. Everyone doesn't need to have the same dashboard. As we said before, positive ID is extremely important. It mitigates errors. It makes sure that the numbers that are scanned are accurate, much more accurate than hand entry and much faster. We've talked about one-dimensional barcoding for positive ID of samples, as well as two-dimensional barcoding. You can see in the second example, there's a lot more information. And then there's also RFID, radio frequency, which is also becoming very popular. And the nice thing is with all of these, you can actually integrate this technology with a lot of the instrumentation to accelerate the analysis even more. So if you have an analyzer that supports barcodes, you can have all the samples labeled and lined up in that analyzer, and it can read the barcode, generate the result, and push it back to the LIMS without any human intervention. Too often in the laboratory, we're drowning in data. So one of the major forces is to eliminate as much paper as possible. And with LIMS, you have the ability to do that. A lot of the data comes off instruments, and if you don't have to look at printouts and retype them into LIMS or push them to Excel and cut and paste them back into LIMS, you just have the ability to upload them electronically. It's much more efficient. And then also being able to access that barcode from anywhere in the laboratory, from sample accessioning or login to final sample disposal. You can create a report of what's ready to be disposed. You can also automatically generate a certificate of analysis report as well as invoice reports, and you can also send them to the web portal so that clients can download those reports 24/7. And again, all of this is reducing the carbon footprint, making sure that a lot less paper is used. We talked a little previously about instrument integration. We're going to talk a little bit more now on just exactly how it works. I often have people ask me, well, I have an instrument, it's really, really old, can you still interface it? And the answer is, as long as there's an output file, whether it's a CSV, comma separated value, an Excel.xls, a text, XML file. New modern applications are now leveraging web services, or you can also talk database to database. But as long as that instrument has an electronic output file, it can be interfaced. And LIMS integration is a huge part of any project that we do today, just because it's one of those places where clients really get a rapid return on investment. I think we've interfaced over 550 different instruments, and the list keeps growing every day. And the beauty of this is it really makes sure that you have the highest data quality. It eliminates the possibility of transcription errors. It's much, much more accurate, and it's much quicker. And in today's world, everyone seems to want everything yesterday. So that is definitely an advantage. The other aspect of LIMS that is very nice is the ability to actually look at the data that you're generating and understand what it means. So you have the ability to view trends and create control charts within LIMS, but many systems also allow you to integrate with statistical software so that you can take a deeper dive into your data. One of the softwares that we've integrated with is JMP by SAS, and they actually have a number of different software packages for different industries based on their needs, which are really nice. Next, we're going to talk about customer relationship management, being able to give clients the information that they're looking for in real time. And one way that we can do this is through a web portal from the LIMS. So as the LIMS manages samples that are logged in, sample tracking, data entry, sample scheduling, QA, QC, final reporting, they show up in the web portal in real time. So once they've been reviewed and approved in the LIMS, almost in real time, customers that are on a web portal that's secure can actually see the outcome of that testing. So some testing may already be completed while other testing might still be in progress. But rather than calling the laboratory and saying, you know, do you have my results? Is my test done? They are empowered to go to the web portal and see the results on their own. And if reports are available, they can download them 24/7. And the nice thing is, for the laboratory, they have the ability to see who's logging in, who's downloading reports, and many of our clients also have placed the invoice up on the web portal. So not only can they download their final analysis report, but then they can also download the final invoice. One of the beauties of the web portal, again, is that it's available 24/7, but the other thing is it's 100% automated from the laboratory standpoint. So once the testing has been completed, it's automatically pushing this information to the portal. There's no human involved, other than the IT making sure that the server's running. And there's also a much higher level of customer satisfaction because today's consumers expect to get their data electronically and on demand. One of the biggest benefits is the cost savings. Clients, laboratories don't need to have full-time client service managers wasting their time on stuffing envelopes with final result reports. They don't have to take calls from customers of past reports that were lost that need to be resent. They don't need to call them checking the status. They have the ability to check the status themselves. And the fact that there's locked PDFs that they can print them out as many times as they want. So if they lose them, they can go back to this data warehouse and pull the report they need and reprint it. There's also the ability to do field collection. So if there's large greenhouses and data needs to be collected, this information can be collected directly to a tablet. The beauty there is that you don't have someone filling out a paper form, bringing it back into the laboratory, saying, was that a 1 or a 7? Because that data is automatically uploaded once it's entered into the tablet or the rugged laptop or the phone. There's a 95% reduction in paper, 100% reduction in the paper storage costs because all of these clients that are doing any type of environmental monitoring that falls under the EPA, they need to hang on to that paper or store that paper for 10 years. And a 48% reduction in costs. So it's a very, very smart move for laboratories that are collecting field data. One of the other areas that people are investing heavily in is moving their software solutions to the cloud. What they found is it's very flexible pricing. It's a low cost of entry because they don't have to manage and maintain the servers, the security that's required, the daily backups, and also the deployment is much faster. They're really offshoring their IT. A lot of the small laboratories don't have the funding to hire a full-time IT administrator, especially when they're starting out, and having software hosted in the cloud is an ideal alternative. Standardization, it's all about time savings, quality, efficiency, and being able to have full trace pack. Regulatory compliance is also very, very important, but when you standardize your testing, your terminology, it just makes the entire organization more efficient and more effective. Some of the benefits of automation include having an electronic chain of custody, being able to be in compliant with many of the regulatory requirements. Security is also becoming more and more important today. And then also being able to keep all of your instrument calibrations, your staff certifications in one location. And within our system, if someone hasn't completed their training, it won't allow them to put results into the system for the test they have not been certified on. And the same with instrument. If an instrument's out of calibration, it won't let the end user utilize that instrument for any testing. It will tell them, calibrate the instrument or find another instrument that's within calibration. So things like this that are built into the solution really enforce quality and compliance with regulatory requirements. We already talked about the importance of instrument interfaces, being able to manage inventory, and then also being able to do advanced analytics and trending and statistics. The major advantage of automation really is enhanced data quality, being able to have standardization across your organization, whether it's within the United States or globally, and then also cost savings. It's much more cost effective because you're maximizing your resources by eliminating mundane tasks that are better left to computers and not people. If we look at some of the savings of automation, 60% resource savings with Result Point Client Portal, 48% savings, and these are from different clients. And savings vary by client based on what their operational procedures are. Some people have more room for savings than others. Some are very efficient already, and they may see less than others that are coming from a manual system. So 48% improvement in lab processing capabilities, 99.9% system availability for software in the cloud, 55% reduction in sample lifecycle processing time, and these are significant savings. 93% reduction in time to identify out-of-specification products. So the sooner that you can identify a problem, the sooner you'll be able to mediate it. So in summary, purchasing the right LIMS is very critical for the cannabis testing laboratory. And standardization really does enforce quality. And one of the things that ISO does is it basically ensures that laboratories have a quality management system in place. So one of the things that we hear a lot from our clients is that they want to purchase software and services from an ISO certified firm so that they don't have to do an internal audit on their own because they know that that's already been done by another organization. Making sure you have the right tool for your staff is very critical because the laboratories have very highly trained scientists that are chemists and microbiologists, and they really need the right tools to do their job. If they're spending time with a calculator, checking formulations by hand, they really need to automate that because, one, if they're doing it with a calculator, each time they do it, they're doing it manually. If the calculation is placed into the LIMS, it's validated and it's locked, it only has to be done one time, and then you know that from there on forward, the LIMS is going to be doing it correctly. So taking those mundane tasks away from the end users and pushing them to computers really does make sense. The LIMS also accelerates and enhances communication across the organization. I know when I worked in the laboratory and if I was looking for a sample, I was always very frustrated because the LIMS we had was very cumbersome and I'd have to walk to the different departments like, do you have the sample? Hank, do you have the sample? And it was very frustrating to get information. So being able to look the information up in a computer is just much more efficient. Also, the LIMS and laboratory automation tools such as barcoding, instrument integration, electronic lab notebooks all have a very, very fast return on investment. They're just things that make sense. And also, one of the side benefits is helping laboratories to meet regulatory compliance goals, as well as for cannabis and other compounds that are similar, having a very strong internal chain of custody and audit trail. So basically, managing where the compounds are within the laboratory or the raw materials based on what you're working with. So if it was in the refrigerator, if it was on the bench top, making sure that you're tracking, and you can do that with barcoding. You can scan it in and scan it out. Who had it? How much did they have? How much did they use? How much is left? All of that information is very important to track. I know we've covered a lot of information. I hope you've learned something new today, and I just want to thank you for your time. And also let you know if you're interested in the LIMS guide, we'll be happy to send that to you. Just reach out, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Paszko, for that informative presentation. We will now start the live Q&A portion of the webinar. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please do so now. Just click on the Ask a Question drop-down box located on the far left of your presentation window. Type your question into the box that appears on your screen and click the Send button. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for. Let's get started. Our first question is, what is the time to set up a LIMS system in a small 5 to 10 person laboratory?
Well, it really depends. It's on the number of instruments the laboratory has, the number of customizations, if they're currently using a system that they may need historical data migration from, and if they have a dedicated project manager. But if they have maybe 5 instruments or fewer, it could probably be done in 3 to 4 months if they have a full-time project manager to kind of take the lead on the project. And laboratories that are new are usually much faster than laboratories that have current processes in place that need to be replaced.
Our next question is, can instruments still be interfaced with the cloud-based LIMS?
Yes, definitely. If a laboratory goes to software as a service in the cloud model, the instrument integration just occurs a little bit differently, where there's typically a port in the firewall to allow the data to be uploaded from the instruments.
And we have time for one more question. And this one says, what are the benefits of using an electronic lab notebook if you have a LIMS?
The electronic lab notebook really complements a LIMS in that it captures all of the unstructured data that a LIMS typically isn't the best at managing and maintaining, and it really helps the laboratory to go paperless and reduce their carbon footprint.
Wonderful. I would like to once again thank Dr. Paszko for her presentation. I would also like to thank LabRoots for making today's educational webcast possible. Before we go, I want to let everyone know that today's webcast will be available for an on-demand viewing through June 29th, 2018. You will receive an email from LabRoots letting you know when this webcast will be available for replay. Please share that announcement with your colleagues who may have missed today's live event. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.